Hello, I'm Snooky, and today I am joined by Smo. Hello. And Cherry.
Hello.
And together we are Hydragames 69. Chapter 10. I own one suit, which is one more than any person should own. The shirt is stiff, the collar itches my neck. The pants feel grandpa high up to my chin, and the shoes are so slippery that I could slide off into the next zip code if I'm not careful. Plus, the suit doesn't even fit. I've grown 2 inches since the last time my parents had it altered, and no matter what I wear it for, I only ever remember it as the funeral suit because it's what I wore after my grandma died. 5 minutes, Narf, Dad says from the other side of my bedroom door, and I can hear his shoes tapping down the hall and back toward my fussy mom. Here, let me get that for you, Mom says. I'm fine, Lou. You missed 3 button loops, she says. I'm trying to expend my escape from this contraction later on, he says. Hun, would you please try to act like a normal human for 3 hours? They are my colleagues, Mom pleads. Without even seeing him, I know Dad is looking at the ground and nodding. There's enough guilt to waft in my direction. And I look down too, even though they can't see me. It's for Mom. That's all we need to know about tonight. It's obvious that Ravenbrooks is proud of their university. The main brick buildings are old, but their trims are freshly painted. Their landscapes tightly manicured and closely clipped. Tonight's fundraiser for a new science wing isn't taking place anywhere near the current science wing. I guess the organization figured jars of pickled animal hearts and emergency eye wash stations didn't create the right atmosphere for a gal. I'm disappointed though. I've been hoping to sneak to the library to read the rest of the article I pocketed. Instead, the fundraiser takes place in the main library, the centerpiece of the university for good reason. Its ornate carvings and meticulous lined shelves are anything but small town. The crystal stemware and white cloth napkins only add to the formally, leaving little doubt about why I'm wearing a suit, even if it is a size too small. Mom is across the room wearing a purple dress that Dad likes because Mom feels good in it. She says it hides her lumpy parts. Dad says he likes her lumpy parts. And that's when I leave the room for fear of throwing up. But tonight, Mom doesn't look like she's worried about her lumpy part, or worried about anything, really. She looks like she owns the room. Dad is in a corner chasing a goat cheese ball around his plate with a fork and laughing with some donor Mom pointed out to him. I'm stuffed on goat cheese balls and sparkly grape juice, and I've scored the shelves unsuccessfully for a single book that doesn't look like it would put me in a coma. I'm on my way back from the bathroom when I see the sign with an arrow pointing downstairs to the archives. I peek around the corner to make sure my parents are still busy talking to the donors before slipping downstairs. The science laboratory didn't have much in the way of city records, but I'm hopeful the main library will offer more. With my parents distracted, maybe I'll actually have a chance to read a full article this time. The stacks are piled with newspapers dating back 20 years, when the Ravenbrooks banner was simply the bulletin. I learned that Mrs. Grove who owns the creepy doll shop, actually has a degree in doll making. I also learned that doll making is a college degree. I discovered that my street was one of the first streets developed in Ravenbrook, and that our very own, not our own, turquoise house was previously owned to a Hollywood stunt woman, Mrs. Tellman. Once had to recall a batch of Cocoa bars that gave Aaron and me the farts because the manufacturer found a dead gopher in the chocolate vat. The former mayor of Ravenbrook was impeached for lying about his legislative expensive. The llama farm indeed used to have goats. Overall, I learned that Ravenbrook has always been as boringly strange as it is today. By the time the bulletin had become the Ravenbrook banner, and the news seemed to have slowed. Stores opening and closing, and local weather mainly dominated the headlines. That is, until the Golden Apple Factory arrived. Suddenly, Evansburg was booming with activity, and the outskirts of the town transformed from farmland to houses to serve the needs of the factory workers and their families. And the town grew even more with the explosion in popularity of the golden apples, which at first was the only local candy. Who would have guessed a local favorite would become a national obsession? Raved once executed of the Golden Apple Corporation in a story dated 5 years ago. I like the chocolate ones best, declared a kid from the same article, pictured with his mouth ringed in said chocolate. Pretty soon, the factory grew to a storefront and they began giving tours. Interactive exhibits became flares for out-of-towners, and a new hotel sprung up on Market Street. Then the announcements came. The Golden Apple Corporation would be building a multi-million-dollar theme park right here in Ravenbrook, where it all began. Every week, at least one story above the folded boasted the progress of the park's construction. I keep reading in morbid fascination. I can't help myself. It's like when magazines publish pictures of Pompeii with their homes and markets frozen in time, unaware that life would come to a sudden stop. I thumbed through page after page of pictures featuring different parts of the park. It's like there was no other news in town for 2 years. I flipped a page of one newspaper dated September 14th, 1991, which features a crew unwrapping a shiny new carousel. It's glittered in bright blues and reds, dark against the dirt ground and surrounded trees they hadn't yet cleared. I set the paper aside and picked up another from the following week. Predictably, there's another Golden Apple amusement park story. This one featuring the half-constructed front entrance. There are at least a dozen workers in their safety vests hauling a sign into place. The next week's paper captures a cement mixer pouring concrete, and this time several small kids gather around the scene. Oversized hard hats obscure all their faces. Next week's article pictures the unveiling of a trap decorated with shiny gold apples and men and women in suits smiling down at the design. Finally, I come to the week of August 7th, 1992. The headline reading in all caps letters, Golden Apple Amusement Park set to open. A massive crowd of business people in suits and construction workers in coveralls and photographers invest in local pioneers in red and gold polo shirts line the entrance of the park 4 rows deep. Each one holds in their extended hand a palm-sized golden apple. Each one smiles brightly, the possibility of the park's success alive in their imagination. Only one person doesn't hold an apple. Instead, he holds an almost comical large pair of golden scissors over a red ribbon. He wears a black suit with a red and gold tie. I recognize him even out of his angrily sweater, Mr. Peterson. It's the captain. It's the caption of the picture, though, that formed a hard pit in my stomach. Park designed by local engineer Theodore Masters Peterson. I read it 5 more times to be sure, but even without the caption, there's no mistaking the mustached face of Aaron's dad. The following week's paper is almost entirely dedicated to the glory of Golden Apple Amusement Park. The front page lead story tells of opening day success, punctured by a collage of smiling parents and excited kids, balloons in hand and cotton candy webbed between their fingers. Above the fold is a draped-looking headshot of Mr. Peterson, his carnival mustache twirled at the ends in perfect theme park designer character. Mr. Peterson is a sort of genius, of a psychic whiz. He engineered some of the world's most invention attractions, bringing new technology and gimmicks to nearly every new park he's designed. There was the vacuum-powered food delivery system at the Albert Alpine Park. It flies through a tube just like the tellers use at banks. One partner marveled. There were the robotic vendors at Tokyo's Cherry Blossom Grove. I didn't have to wait in line for hours just to buy a keychain, said another park goer. And as his reputation as an engineer grew, so did his obsession for his ambitions for his park. Only instead of looking for business inventions, it seems like Mr. Pearson became more interested in the rides themselves. At Barland's Bank Park Bar, he was the first engineer to create a potential motion boomerang ride. Operators admitted it could only be stopped by a kill switch on a hidden console. I thought I was gonna barf, remarked one writer, whose laughing face betrayed a hint of panic in his picture. And then there was the Golden Apple Amusement Park. Its crowning achievement as an engineer of the world's most exciting attraction. One could only imagine it had to be spectacular. The profile reads, with the park's unpredicted opening day crowd, we're left wondering what Mr. Pearson has up his sleeve for the big surprise we've come to expect from his parks. You'll just have to wait and see next week, Mr. Pearson is quoting as saying, I'll give you a hint though. Have you noticed there's no roller coaster in this park? article ends with a reference to the off-limits end of the park, a tarp several stories high and show-stopping ride that was sure to put Ravenbrook on the map. I'm not sure if he set the article down so much as pushed it away under the shelf, appalled at it, appalled at its ignorance of what's to come. I want to scream at the reporter, the smiling patrons in the picture, and the gleeful, reckless Mr. Peterson, who set such an unimaginable tragedy in motion. There you are, Jay. I found you. Mom thunders down the stairs looking mostly mad but a little relieved. I act without thinking, ripping the first few articles from each of the following week's newspapers and shoving them into my pocket before tossing the papers to the side. You made me sweat all over my favorite dress, she says, as she sits down next to the pile of papers I've amassed. I got bored, I say, as an apology, and the cool thing about Mom is that's all she needs. What's all this? She says, sliding the papers around a little. I don't know, I say, which is maybe the most honest thing I've said to Mom in weeks. She lifts a few of the pictures to the light, and her mouth becomes a thin line. Then, without saying all the obvious stuff about how sad it is to see what everyone thought the park was going to be, she looks at me and says, I think this move has been the hardest one yet. There in the dim light of the library basement in her purple dress with its little dark rings forming in the armpits, Mom becomes my favorite new person. It's the first time she's ever said what I've never figured out how to say. That after a while, calling so many places home just doodles the word, and she doesn't like it either. Dad descends the stairs just as Mom and I are coming back up. Hey, Nerf, he says, an apology on his face even though he wasn't there for what Mom said. Sometimes Dad just knows. I smuggled out some cheesecake for you. I eat the dessert in the car while Mom and Dad rehash the night and laugh about the boring people. I stare out the window at the weird little town of Ravenbrook and realize that its definition of home probably changed that awful day at the park a week after it opened. I wonder how many people still feel like they did 20 years ago, or 30 years, or 50, before the day Lucy Yee died. I wonder how much Aaron thinks his dad is to blame for that. When I get home, I practically tear off my suit and get into my pajamas. But sleep won't come easy. I have more reading to do. I pull the crumbled articles from my suit pocket and smooth them across the floorboards of my bedroom. The first article appears in an issue published a week after the tragedy. It's Mr. Peterson, but his perfectly waxed mustache is less friendly, more pointy. And the picture isn't the only thing unflattering about the new profile in the Ravenbrook banner. What began as a prayer vigil for young Lucy E., the 7-year-old victim of Golden Apple Amusement Park's Daredevil roller coaster Rotten Core, ended in a fire that devastated the already infamous attraction. Now investigators are demanding to know why the dangerous roller coaster was allowed to operate before passing certain critical inspections. And angry investors have uncovered troubling details about the man responsible for the park's design. A knock at my door startles me from the story. and I slide the paper under my bed just in time for Dad to pop his head in to say goodnight. About the cheesecake, huh? He says, wiggling his eyebrows. It was pretty epic, I say, trying to recall even tasting it. Find anything interesting in the library? Yes. No, I say, shrugging. Want me to leave you alone? He says, a hint of a smile creeping through. Kinda. Or should I just go to bed? He says, trying to make me crack. Well, trying to figure out how to tell my nicely to buzz off, Dad. He won, he broke me, he laughs. Good night, Narf. I wait until I hear my parents' bedroom door close before I retrieve the article from under my bed. A resurfaced investigation has raised concerns over the reputation of the world-renowned engineer after reporters unearthed details of a 1987 accident in one of the designer's parks in Melbourne, Australia. What was first thought to be an electric fire due to faulty wiring in wobbly Wonderland's prismatic tunnels was later determined to be an accident caused by a critical flaw in the attraction's braking fail-safe. The accident occurred when an empty car jumped the track, sparking a fire that ignited an exposed patch of insulation, killing 4 teens aged 13 to 17. While investigators were found legally responsible, that finding remains disrupted as several questions remain about the safety inspections the park failed to undergo prior to its opening, said one inspector. As far as I can tell, no one from my team checked that ride. Not a chance anyone would have given it passing marks without an emergency brake. The inspector joins a small course of objects, some of them investigators, accused of trying to deflect blame, but one investigator lodged an exploring disturbing claim against T.M. Peterson, the park's engineer and mastermind. He told me about the mechanics once and his frustration with its limitation. He said safety features tempered the excitement down. He said emergency brakes put a drag on the speed. The main specification mentioned emergency brakes. With little evidence and tragic half a world away, Ravenbrook's engineer continued his work, bringing what many believed an insignificantly unsafe and possibly legal practice to his park design. Design that may just be to blame for Lucy E's death. The other front page I borrowed from the library's archives. The issue from 2 weeks after the accident avoids the name T.M. Peterson altogether. Instead, it features a window into the life of Lucy E. About how she loved her hamster Greg and played the violin and wanted to be an inventor like Leonardo da Vinci when she grew up. The picture at the bottom of the article shows Lucy E. fridge of bangs doing little to hide the embarrassment in her smile. She's cheek to cheek with 2 other smiling girls, their arms interlocking like sisters. With a start, I realized that I recognized the face mask mashed against Lucy's on one side. It's my Peterson. And like sisters, all 3 girls in the picture have matching bracelets with little golden charms in the shape of an apple. The picture is captioned, "My Lucy and Marcus, members of the Golden Apple Young Adventures Club." I pull the bracelet that I found beneath the trellis from my desk drawer and hold it up to one of the bracelets picture on the girl's wrist. It's a perfect match. Chapter 11, my turn. I throw a pair of pajamas into my backpack and forgo my toothbrush to make space for the audio manipulator. It's built, and all we need now is to add the recorded audio. I survey my bag contents and decide that pretty much covers all I need. Downstairs, as I slip on my shoes, Dad and Mom watch me a little too closely. "Excited for your big sleepover?" Dad asks. "Dad," I say, flinching. "Sorry, you're super grown up. Totally. Not a big deal. Hang out. Where you might wear pajamas and might not sleep." "That's not better," I say. "Just remember to brush your teeth," Mom says, and I swear to the aliens she can see straight through my backpack to my missing toothbrush. "Uh-huh." And say thank you, she says. She's still irked that the Petersons haven't bothered to come by. But to her, please and thank you are holy words. "I will," I say, "and solve the mysteries of the universe," Dad says, and Mom gives him a look. "What? Are you implying that manners and hygiene are impossible requests for our son?" "No, he's 12. He's barely human at this age. I sigh to end things before they get ugly. I'll say thank you," I tell Mom, and she smiles like she's won. "And I'll ponder the meaning of life," I tell Dad, and he gives me a dorky thumbs up. As I cross the street, I do ponder, but not about life. I wonder how in the world I'm going to ask Aaron about everything I read in the old newspaper about Golden Apple amusement park, about his dad and mine, because there's not even a silver of a chance that I'll be able to stop myself from asking. Mrs. Peterson glides into the room like she's on bills. I don't even hear her until she's right behind me. A pile of sheets stacked on top of a pillow cradle in her arms. I don't mean to jump, it's just that she surprised me. "Wow, I know I forgot to put on lipstick today, but exactly how frightening do I look?" "No, you don't at all. I mean, I just..." "Nikki, I'm kidding, honey. I have a light step. Mom's a teacher, but she danced ballet when she was in college," Mike says as she tucks down on Aaron's bottom bunk. "She even danced at one of Dad's park openings." "No one invited you, Tara," Aaron says, nudging my office bed. "Thank you, Mrs. Peterson," I say, taking the lines from her. She says, her eyes glazed over like she's distracted. "Oh, you can call me Dinah, honey," she says, focusing on me long enough to lightly tassel my hair. I said, "Stop calling me that," Mai says, shoving Aaron's leg when he pokes her with his toe. "Ow, your toenails are like knives." "My para, eat farts and papa," Aaron sings, still poking her. "Mom!" Mrs. Peterson, Dinah, spreads the sheets across the bottom bunk of Aaron's bed. "Stop calling your sister a parrot, she says, clearly lost in more pleasant thoughts. She's humming quietly to herself, somehow blocking out the elastic brawl between Aaron and his sister. "So if you eat farts, does that mean you burp farts too?" Is that why you always smell so bad? My flushes pink and glances at me. I don't smell bad, Mom. But Dinah is already on her way out the door. She's moving slowly, though almost like she's forgotten where the door is. All at once, Aaron and Maya stop arguing, and a sudden silence blankets the room. In that quiet, I can hear the faint songs Mrs. Peterson has been humming to herself. Only now, she's partially whispering it, like she's afraid to scare away the memory attached to the tone. Mai follows her mother, still glowing crimson, but she lands a final solid punch on Aaron's bicep on her way out. I watched her leave. Ever since I saw the photo of her, Lucy, and that other girl wearing the golden apple bracelet in the newspaper article, I've been trying to understand what it would mean that the bracelet would find its way into my front yard. I still don't know, but I have a feeling Maya does, which means I'll probably never figure it out. Might even less of a sharer than Aaron, if that's possible. As soon as Maya reaches the stairs at the end of the hall, Aaron closes the bedroom door and waves me to his desk. He pulls a drawer open, and rather than take anything out of it, he reaches his hand all the way inside until his shoulder deep and still reaching. I look at his desk, and it doesn't take me long to determine that what I am seeing is impossible. Flush against the wall, his desk can't stick out more than a foot and a half. What the? Aaron smiles as he struggles to grip whatever hides in his magical desk. Then he gives up and pulls the whole drawer open, exposing its missing back. We duck down, our heads together, and I understand. There's a hole in its wall. The drawer has a false back. You really are a criminal mastermind, I say, and Aaron chuckles. Then he hauls out his treasure. It's a box full of junk of the very best kind. Their dismantled motor and remote control cars, parts of an old toaster, the speaker wire, clamps, and locks. Keys to nowhere, a discarded keyboard, a phone without its faceplate, and at least 3 broken calculators. It's a gadget headband. Holy aliens, Aaron, I say. And he smiles in a way that I haven't seen. I think this is what pride looks like on Aaron. From one weirdo to another, I now know how exclusive pride can be. It's all stuff I collected from the factory before you moved here. I wanted to make something out of it, except I don't know how. He looks at me. Think you can use any of these parts for your audio synthesizer? The synthesizer. I can't believe I almost forgot. Reaching for my bag, I pull out the finished product, and as quickly as Aaron's face lights up, it dims again, and I realize that maybe he wanted to help me finish it. It's not ready yet, I hurry to explain, and some of the light returns to Aaron's face. No? I shake my head slowly and explain. We still need the recording. He smiles so wide, I think his face might split apart. An hour later, left on survivor bars and bloated to the point of bursting, Aaron and I are a mess. I'm laughing so hard I can barely hold the microphone to the audio source. Every time Aaron lets one rip, we fall apart, rolling across this floor like beetles on our back. I takes everything in me together myself, and I plaster on my most serious face, placing a hand on Aaron's shoulder. Fine, sir, I say. I stress that was your best work yet. He matches my seriousness, but only for a second, and then we both break. Boys, Mrs. Pearson says, peeking in the doorway, are you planning to come down for pizza at any point tonight, or, sweet Mary, what is that smell? I laughed so hard my sides pinched. Aaron wipes the tears from his eyes. Sorry, Mom, he says. We're performing an experiment, I say. Creating art, he says over me. And we burst up all over again. But whatever you're doing, open a window. For Pete's sake, Mrs. Peterson says. That's toxic. Aaron's bars this time accidentally, and I have to bury my face in the bottom bunk to keep myself from laughing to death or suffocating. Either one is especially possible. Once we've clamped down enough to choose a series of Aaron's craziest farts for the synthesizer, we're suddenly at a loss for things to do. It's late, but neither of us is tired. Still, maybe out of habit or boredom, we pull on our pajamas and take to our bunk. Aaron on the top bunk, me staring at the slates from the bottom. It's not the right time because no time is the right time. So somehow it seems more possible to talk to Aaron about his dad when I only have to stare at the mattress above me and not at his face. So I gotta ask, I say, trying to sound casual. No, I don't believe in aliens, Aaron says. Wait, what? Sorry, man, I know it's your, I don't know, religion or whatever, he says. It's not my religion. Then I catch myself pushing my shock aside fiercely. How can he not believe in aliens? The proof is overwhelming. I try again to bring up the most awkward conversation ever. So what's up with your dad anyway? The silence that followed is painful. I only have myself to blame. It was perhaps history's worst saga. What do you mean? Aaron asks, but he's quiet and his voice doesn't ask what do you mean as much as how much do you know. I mean, he's pretty intense, I say. This is excruciating. At this rate, it's going to take me a week to work up the courage to ask him what I really want to ask him. If Aaron knows his dad is suspected of possible making bribes and say, even thinking it sounds absurd. Still, I can't shake the feeling he wants me to ask him. Why else would he accidentally bring me by Golden Apple Acres amusement park? Aaron shifts in his bunk overhead, and I hold as still as I can so I don't miss a word. Just ask me what you want to ask me, he said, and suddenly he does sound tired. He sounds like he hasn't slept in years. It's the old Aaron again, the one I encountered on our first few times hanging out. It's old beyond his years, burdened by something unseen. I've aged him. I weighed him down by bringing up the past. A past he has to know about. Of course he has to know about. Why did you want me to know about the park? I asked, and he's quiet for a long time. I think maybe he's decided to stop talking to me for the rest of the night. After a long while, he says, he was a genius, you know, like a real Einstein-level genius. I don't say anything because I do know that, and I don't want to stop him talking now that he's finally started up again. I'm not happy Lucy E. died, he says, and this takes me off guard because, of course, he's not. Who would ever be happy about something like that? Then I remember something else he said to me in this very room, something he said like a confession, even though I didn't know it at the time. What does it make? What does make a person bad then? Being happy when bad things happen. But he stopped after that, Aaron said, and I understand now. The accident that killed Lucy also killed Mr. Pearson's career. A career that would become increasingly relentless with every new venture. Then Aaron really does stop talking. Before long, I hear the slow, even breath of his slumber above me. The weight on him has disappeared, at least for now, but isn't actually gone. The weight has shifted to me, and I wonder how I'll ever fall asleep like him. I lie awake for what feels like an eternity, staring at the slates above my bunk, thinking about how long Aaron's blamed himself for simply feeling relieved. Relief in the form of Lucy E's death. When I wake up, the only light in the room emits from the recording light on the audio simulator. Aaron is still in the top bunk. His snoring is the only clear indicator he's even alive. I try to remember the last time I've slept that soundly. Except he's not exactly peaceful. He's twitching hard. And if I listen close enough between bouts of snoring, I can hear him begging to the things of his nightmares. No, and don't, and please. I lie there for a moment trying to figure out what exactly it was that woke me up. I was dreaming again, but this dream didn't start in the car or in the grocery store at all. This one started in a tunnel. It closed and went in on me, edging closer and closer to my shoulders, then the top of my head, until I began to shrink. I dropped to the bottom of something deep and dark, so dark I wasn't sure my eyes were even open. And well, I don't remember much after that. I do remember the voice that hissed to me across the deep, dark expanse. I remember the chilling words it whispered to me, "Find me." And then I woke up, but it wasn't the voice from my dream that woke me. It was a sound. But like the voice from my dream, the sound that woke me is long gone. And in its place is thirst. Between the survivor bars, the pizza we did eventually sneak downstairs to eat. My mouth is a desert, and as I stare at the bunk above me where Aaron twitches away, I know there is no way I'm going back to sleep until I can get something to drink. Catching a flashlight from the pile of opened electronics on Aaron's floor, I creeped down the hallway, taking care to avoid as many squeaky floorboards as I can. But Aaron's house is full, and my door is shut tight. But Mr. and Mrs. Peterson's door can't open a crack, and I can barely make out the rustles of sheep as I sneak by. Just find the kitchen, get a drink, and go back to bed, I tell myself. There's something weird about sneaking around your friend's house when everyone else is asleep. When you're awake, you're a guest, but when the rest of the house sleeps, it's hard not to feel like an intruder. The thought of Mr. Pearson mistaking me for a home invader is enough to propel me down the stairs, and even though I know I made too much noise, at least I'm past the worst part now that I'm downstairs. Except I'm not past the worst part, because suddenly I'm lost. I hold the flashlight up, disbelieving that I could actually have lost my way from the stairs to the kitchen. But I really have. The door to the kitchen should be right in front of me, shouldn't it? I walk forward, not believing what the flashlight is showing me. There it is a wall, where there should be a kitchen. I look to my right, but the living room isn't there either. In fact, all that's in front of me is a long hallway. I stop cold, the contents of my anxious thoughts creeping into my waking life. I shake it off, though, and remind myself that I'm just tired and thirsty, and I haven't ever seen this house at night. It's kind of a maze even in the daytime, so I must have taken a wrong turn somewhere between the upstairs hallway and the stairs leading here. I keep walking, still hoping that I'll find the kitchen just a little further ahead. I don't though. Instead, I find myself surrounded by closed doors, each boasting a slightly different doorknob and key. What? I'm just about to turn around and retrace my steps back up the stairs when I hear a sound I'd hoped to never hear again from this house. Ice cream truck music. The melody winds up, then down again, then goes silent and repeats the pattern. I step lightly across the floor of the hallway, pressing my ear against each door I pass. Yet none of them seem to hide the source of the sound. Then the music stops. I wait to see if it returns, but all that greets me are the creaks and groans of someone else home. I've lived in enough houses that belong to other people to not be freaked out by those sounds. Still, there was something about that thud. I stop cold, straining. I wait to hear it again. I don't have to wait long. Thud. This time closer. This time with a dragging sound that follows. Then another thud. There's no mistaking the sound now. It's footsteps. Footsteps that aren't moving quite right. I swallow, but I can't wet my dry throat. I want to turn around and go back up the stairs, but now I'm not entirely certain the sound was coming from up ahead. The hallway is playing tricks on my ears, and the thudding and dragging now sounds like maybe it's coming from behind me. A groggy Mr. Pearson creeping up behind me, what he thinks is an intruder. A sleepwalking Aaron fumbling through his house. An actual intruder. None of the possibilities fill my thumping heart, and why didn't I just get some water from the bathroom upstairs? The thudding and dragging speed up, and all at once, I understand why it's getting louder. It's moving toward me. I turn to open the door behind me, no longer trying to figure out where the sound is coming from. All I can think of is hiding until it passes, but the doorknob won't budge. I try one further down the hall, but it's locked too. The thudding is louder still, and I try another door. Miraculously, this one opens, and I fall through it, closing the door behind me a little too hard. I wince at the sound and wait to see if the footsteps pass. Suddenly, I don't hear them anymore. I press my ear to the door, but it's as though there was never any noise in the first place. No music, no footsteps, no cracks or groans in the walls or pipes. My flashlight is trained to a single spot on the floor, and only now do I realize I'm standing on a well-worn area rug, the kind you'd find in the sitting room of some rich old lady's house, like maybe it was nice a long time ago. But now it just looks like it's trying to hide something worse underneath.
My turn to take over. I swing my flashlight across the room and find it cluttered with so much furniture. I can hardly see the walls that frame the space. There are bars of bookshelves, glass cases protecting plastic framed in wood, and statues carved from crystal. I move closer and see Mr. Peterson's name etched into every single one, each praising him for a different accomplishment. One of the glass cases apps a massive wooden desk that takes up a fourth of the room, and so much paperwork clutters the desk. Even the imposing piece of furniture looks like it might buckle under the weight. I train the light on the papers, spread haphazardly across the surface, trying to make some sense of the room that at one time must have served as an office to Mr. Peterson. There are large pearl blueprints paper-weighted at their corners, with measurements and precise notions penciled beside each line and carved. Some of the names I recognize from old newspaper articles: the Bell Tower, the Dead Weight, and Dragon's Lair, the most dangerous thrill rides from Mr. Peterson's park across the world. There are some I don't recognize that inverted cyclone, the Whip, whose curves and lines cover the entire space of the blueprint. There's one blueprint that isn't done, that doesn't even have a name, but it spirals to the edge of the paper at angles that seem to defy gravity. A smattering of red X's mark areas on the design like some kind of treasure map. Only instead of singling treasure, the X's have words beside them like Axis 1, Erase 2, and Hatch 3. My mind is trying to keep up, but distortion and fear have given way to exhaustion, and I am distracted by the need for water and sleep. My turn to take over. I swing my flashlight across the room and find it cluttered with so much furniture. I can hardly see the walls that frame the space. There are bars of bookshelves, glass cases protecting plastic framed in wood, and statues carved from crystal. I move closer and see Mr. Peterson's name etched into every single one, each praising him for a different accomplishment. One of the glass cases apps a massive wooden desk that takes up a fourth of the room, and so much paperwork clutters the desk. Even the imposing piece of furniture looks like it might buckle under the weight. I train the light on the papers, spread haphazardly across the surface, trying to make some sense of the room that at one time must have served as an office to Mr. Peterson. There are large pearl blueprints paper-weighted at their corners, with measurements and precise notions penciled beside each line and carved. Some of the names I recognize from old newspaper articles: the Bell Tower, the Dead Weight, and Dragon's Lair, the most dangerous thrill rides from Mr. Peterson's park across the world. There are some I don't recognize that inverted cyclone, the Whip, whose curves and lines cover the entire space of the blueprint. There's one blueprint that isn't done, that doesn't even have a name, but it spirals to the edge of the paper at angles that seem to defy gravity. A smattering of red X's mark areas on the design like some kind of treasure map. Only instead of singling treasure, the X's have words beside them like Axis 1, Erase 2, and Hatch 3. My mind is trying to keep up, but distortion and fear have given way to exhaustion, and I am distracted by the need for water and sleep. I've just about resolved to ask Aaron about the room and the blueprints tomorrow morning when the beam of my flashlight lands on a filing cabinet shoved against the wall beside the desk. It's packed so fully that drawers are spilling out their corners, with one flat file seemingly dominating the drawer. In thick black marker, the file label reads Golden Apple Amusement Park. My heartbeat quickened, and I grabbed for the file without thinking. Common sense should have made me rethink snooping in Mr. Pierce's study, but I seem to have lost common sense as I lost my way in this winding house. I tried pulling the file from the drawer, but it's wedged in too tightly. Instead, all I managed is to dislodge a couple of papers, sending another few fluttering to the floor, destroying an already glowing pile of spilling contents. The first piece of paper is a letter printed on thick stationery with the kind of letterhead that embosses the paper. From the office of Lynn, Gerber, and Forsyth. Dear Mr. Pearson, it is with prejudice that we inform you we are disinclined to purchase charges against you. Your business holdings in any assets thereby affected by said holding. But we feel a significant portion of the liability of the death of our client's daughter lies in your hands, given the state court's findings, placing sole responsibility on the Golden Apple Corporation. Our client has elected not to pursue civil damage, finding you currently responsible in the death of Lucy E. While we reserve the right to re-engage in proceedings at a later date, consider this letter official notice that we are discontinuing pursuit of charges against you. Theodore Masters Peterson. Sincerely, Foreman, I guess is what that signature is. I blink at the letter and translate the legal jargon as best as I can. The client's daughter was Lucy. It must have been Lucy's parents suing Mr. Pearson for their daughter's death. But the state found that Golden Apple Corporation is responsible, not Mr. Pearson, which means Mr. Pearson probably would have been absolved in civil court too. I picture my parents in that same situation, still faced in a courtroom while some faceless company is named as my killer. I wonder how it feels to hurt that badly. Not to get an apology. Not to be able to look anyone in the eye and say, you're the reason I don't make jokes anymore or eat cake or go to parks because there are too many kids there who will remind me of the one I don't have anymore. I wonder how it feels to be robbed like that, again and again. I wonder how it feels to know your dad was the real robber. I actually stepped on the pile of papers I've contributed to on the floor. In the shadows of the stage, they look like grinding photographs of a fortress. A construction site, a group of people crowded around a work table. When I picked them up and laid them across the desk, the beam from my flashlight reveals something unexpected. The first picture is a photocopy of a newspaper article. Brown breaks on hometown landmark construction begins on buzz about Golden Apple Amusement Park. Below the headline is a thick grove of trees, a bulldozer, and a team of workers with chainsaws ready to clear the land. Mr. Pearson is in the foreground, construction hat high on his head, mustache curled to match his smile. But in the background, nearly out of frame, is a stooped figure looking by one of the trees. I likely wouldn't have noticed him at all if not for the red ink circling his figure, the pen retracing the circle so many times the page is torn. I might not have noticed it at all, but now that I do, there's no mistaking who it is. Blurry and marred in red ink, it's Aaron. He's younger, 5 years younger, if it's at the start of the construction, but it's Aaron. And while he's blurry, it's hard to deny that his pose simply he's hiding. I push the page aside and find another photocopy of an article. Ahead of schedule, freshest moments for Golden Apple Amusement Park to open by summer. In this picture, Mr. Pearson points to a crane swinging a beam across the framework of what was to become the base of the funhouse, judging by the gaping mouth surrounding the beginnings of a track. All eyes are on Mr. Pearson in the picture, including the crouched boy, circled in red, peeking out from the funhouse frame. The next article is dominated by an entire crew of men in vests and hard hats, staring upward at a structure so tall it doesn't fit in the frame, which makes it more noticeable that one head stares straight ahead, or rather at Mr. Peterson, standing at the front of the group. Aaron is once again encircled in red ink, hanging back by a pile of iron rods. Page after page shows Aaron nearly out of frame, outside from his hiding place by the red pinned wielder. I look around at the rest of the office. Its hulking figurine casing distorted shadows across the frame picture of the Petersons family. It strikes me that this is the only room in the entire house where I've seen any family photos at all. But when I examine the pictures closer, I see that they've also been marred by red ink. The placed smiling faces of Mr. Peterson, Mrs. Peterson, and Maya grace most of the pictures, as does Mr. Peterson. The only unsmiling face is Aaron. And as the Peterson family ages, their smiles turn from complacent to pinched, and Aaron's face disappears altogether behind the scribble of that angry red pen. Only one picture offers more than a scribble, what appears to be the last family portrait taken of the Petersons. Etching by their ages, beside the etched-away face of Aaron is what I first read as his name. But when I look closer, I see the word isn't Aaron, it's Omen. I drop the flashlight and the room goes black. I stand in the place, trembling on a squeaky floorboard it's too late to avoid. Then from somewhere in the dark, I hear the slow creak of the door swinging open. I was so engrossed in the pictures, I didn't even hear the footsteps return. The thump, the drag, the labor movement of whatever has emerged into the room. It is so close that I can hear breathing. I know it isn't mine. Run, run! But my stupid feet are stuck. I want to be dreaming. Please let me be dreaming. But I'm not. I know I'm not. The breathing grows louder like an animal preparing to pounce. I hold perfectly still, my only defense in the pitch black of the room. But whoever is here knows I'm here. Floorboards moan under the weight of the feet that methodically make their way toward me. They step to the glass case, rattling still wards on their shelves. They step to the desk, with its papers exposed to my praying eyes. They step to the filing cabinet, its papers still resounding from the door. They step so close to me that I can feel the hot, menacing breath on the back of my neck. In its exhale, I hear my name. Nicholas, the voice says, you shouldn't be here. A soft glow illuminates the floor and the flashlight at my feet. Leaning over me is an impossible long shadow. I turn because I don't know what else to do. I can't run, I can't hide. All I can do is face the shadow. Heat hits my face and temporarily blinds, and when my sight returns, the first thing I make out is angrily. I tilt my head to reach the top of Mr. Peterson's face, and I don't like what I see. His eyes darken and distorted by the flame of the candle he holds are barely visible. Below his eyes are the flaring nostrils of a man whose house I should not be wandering without permission. His private office I should absolutely not be rummaging through. His thick mustache curls upward mockingly, barreling the frown that's only barely visible underneath. I look down at my bare feet again, terrified and embraced, which is the only reason I notice that Mr. Peterson's shoes are on. In the middle of the night, I look up again, taking in his pants and his angrily sweater in my pajamas, but Mr. Peterson is fully clothed. I struggle for an answer to a question I think he might ask, but he doesn't ask anything. In fact, he hasn't said another word since I turned around to face him. He's just staring. I watch the light from his candle flicker and sway in the draft of the house, but Mr. Peterson holds it perfectly still. After I notice his hands, mirrored and coated in something thick and dark. My eyes travel upward, and I don't know if I'm expecting an explanation for why he's here, what's on his hands, why he's up so late, or if he's expecting an explanation from me. But what am I not expecting is that smile. That horrible, out-of-place, unhappy smile that suddenly creeps out from under his mustache and spread across his face. Then he starts to laugh. It's a low rumble from his gut at first, but soon it travels through his chest and his throat and out of his mouth. And the light, airy giggle is so vastly different from the glow it started as. I am all at once aware of how much of the room he takes up. His shoulders are broad enough to equal twice my width. I can barely see the doorway behind him, and all I want is that doorway. Then, as suddenly as his horrifying laughter started, it stops. He holds the silence between us with a gasp as tight as that on his candle. He leans down inches from my face and meets my eyes. "Nighty-night, Nicky," he says, and with a single puff, he blows out the candle and steps aside. I sprint out of the room and find the stairs running on feet I can't even feel anymore. I run past the hallway as I was so desperate to traverse quickly moments ago. In Aaron's room, I swing the door shut behind me, locking it again, but lurks in the dark. I look to the top bunk where Aaron's asleep. Certain the commotion woke him, but he doesn't even snore anymore. He lies still, his face disturbed by the comfort, and wait for a second to see if he's actually awake behind there. When only silence greets me, I'm left with the sound of my heart pounding away in my ears, my teeth chattering in the violent rhythm as I fight to calm myself. Then once I'm finally still, I prop my pillow against the wall and watch the door from the bottom bunk flinching every time the wood of the house pops or settles. I've forgotten the drawer full of possibilities. I've forgotten the water I never drank. I've forgotten the excitement I had about finally making a friend as a stranger as me. All I remember is the music in the basement. Photo after photo of Aaron's circled image, the grim on Mr. Pearson's hand, and that mad smile that grew from a face that's forgotten enjoyment.